What's up, guys? Welcome to AP World History Periods 1's crash course in 15 minutes or less. Let's get ready to rumble!
Hi everybody and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us with our Period 1 U.S. History crash course lesson. Let's go back before the Europeans arrived and to where the Native American civilizations thrived. With their economic, social, and political structures already in place, we will then continue into overseas expansion when the Columbian Exchange impacted the contact between Native Americans, Africans, and Europeans, and how their worldviews challenge each other's.
Now let's get started. Before Christopher Columbus set foot on the North American soil, the three most known civilizations ruled and used the land: the Mayans, the Aztecs, and the Incas. The Mayans were a Mesoamerican civilization located in Central America, and were remembered for their Mayan script, which is the only known fully developed writing system of the pre-Columbian Americas. They built remarkable cities in the rainforest in the Yucatan Peninsula, which is present-day Guatemala, Belize, thank you,
You're fine.
and Southern America. The Olmec heavily influenced the Mayans. They built independent cities linked by trade and military alliances. War between the city-states, corruption of trade, and over-farming may have caused the downfall of the Mayans.
As well as the Aztecs, who were also a Mesoamerican civilization and thrived in the 14th and 15th centuries from Mexico. They had a system of canals and causeways, came as nomads, and settled in central Mexico near lakes with fertile soil. The arrival of Cortez finalized the end of the Aztec Empire.
And lastly, the Inca civilization. They were members of the South American native people who established an empire in Peru. Most efficient farmers, ending with Spanish explorers triggering the fall of their civilization by bringing diseases to their travels. Now you're probably wondering, how did the Native American language differ from the European language? That is an interesting question, and the answer happens to be a really simple one. Absolutely no language of the Americans had a writing system until the arrival of the Europeans.
So you're basically saying nobody had a way of writing their own language?
Not exactly. The Mayans were the only civilization who had a fully developed working language. Other civilizations had a small part of this process, but not fully.
I got it. That makes sense.
Yep. So continuing.
Right. Well, oh yes, thank you. Southwest settlements. These Southwest settlements consisted of the Hocoman, the Anasazi, and the Pueblo tribes. They were in present-day Arizona and New Mexico. Their way of life was moving at a fair pace. They used irrigation systems and had two-story housing.
Northwest settlements. This area consisted of the Chinook, Coast Salish, Tlingit, and Tillamook. They lived in present-day Alaska to California. Their way of life included living in permanent housings. They fished, they hunt, and gathered. They told stories and legends through totem poles.
Thanks. My turn now?
Yeah.
Alright, thank you. So as for Midwest settlements, they are known as the Adena and the Hopewell tribes. They lived east of the Mississippi, and their way of life was about permanent settlements along the river, earth mounds, and farming.
You happy?
Yes.
Anyways, northeast settlements. Knowing as the Iroquois Confederation, the Seneca, the Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and the Mohawk. They lived in the combined hunting and farming, and rivalry between other tribes and Europeans.
As for Atlantic seaboard settlements, they were societies developed in favor of permanent housing, and they had a mixed agriculture.
Meanwhile,
yes, in Spain, thank you very much. The uniting of Spain underneath the King Trinidad and Queen Isabella.
Are you done interrupting me?
For now.
Okay, well, we went backwards. Before we can continue, we need to explain why it's even possible for them to unite and to be able to fund Christopher Columbus's voyage.
Okay, but alright, whatever. Can I do that?
Yes.
Yay, so fun fact, the Renaissance. We took a step forward in our technology then, and now we have boats. Can we move on? It's kind of getting boring.
No, just keep going.
Whatever, alright. Where was I? Oh, yes. So yes, we have boats and better sails, better means of navigation, and now we know stuff like currents and winds at sea. Your turn.
Okay, now you can go.
Thanks. So now Ferdinand of Aragon has married Isabella Castillo, thus beginning a cooperative reign that would now unite all dominations and elevate the nation to accommodate world power. Now comes the Protestant Reformation, the religious, political, intellectual, and cultural upheaval that splintered Catholic Europe, setting in place the structures and beliefs that would define the continent of the modern era.
So what new routes did Europeans attempt to travel, and why?
Well, to answer your very simple question, Europeans wanted to discover a new and a smarter route to Asia. You know the saying, work smarter, not harder.
Now for the fast ending, because we were running out of time, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
Which was funded by the happily married king and queen.
Yes. Anywho, yes. His voyage, it brought back fully documented interactions between the natives and the Europeans, which moved us to the Columbian Exchange. The trading circle between Europe, Asia, Africa, America, and the Caribbean.
Isn't that how slaves were brought into North America?
Yes. It was also transferred of many plants, diseases, and animals. For example, tobacco, potatoes, beans, pigs, horses, smallpox, measles, and inventions just like the guns and wheel.
Wow, you really know your stuff, don't you?
Yeah, better than you.
Sure. Now that happened, the Spanish now gained control of lands west of the line of demarcation. Now the Treaty of Tordesillas is in progress. This treaty, as of 1494, states the newly discovered lands to the west of the imaginary line that passes through the Atlantic Ocean would belong to Spain. And the newly land discovered east of the imaginary line will now belong to Portugal.
Now let's introduce you to some very important people, just like Vasco Núñez de Balboa, who is the person who helped establish the town of Darien. And in 1813, he had led the first European expedition to the Pacific Ocean. And Fernand Milligan is the man who discovered not only the large ocean, but he also discovered that the Earth was much larger than previously thought.
As for Hernán Cortés, he's a Spanish explorer who ignored orders, traveled to Mexico with 500 men, 11 ships, but famously known for conquering the Native American civilization, also known as the Aztecs in 1519.
Let's go on to Francisco Pizarro, an individual who served on the 1513 expedition with Vasco Núñez de Balboa. He is mainly known for keeping the Inca tribe leader hostage, despite having ransom to spare his life.
Wow, now that you're finally done, let's go over to the encomienda system. It's basically said that Spanish officers may gain ownership of Indian land, and this was created by the Spanish to control and regulate the American Indian tribes. It put Native Americans in back-breaking labor during the colonization of the Americas. As for the ensantial system, yay, another boring system that didn't go as planned. This was part of a trading circle for slavery. It resulted in hundreds of thousands of slaves being brought to the New World.
And moving on, let's discuss John Cabot. He made a British claim to land in Canada, but he mistaken it for Asia, so he's not the sharpest tool in the shed.
But why didn't England immediately follow up with his discoveries with more expeditions?
Well, actually, England's monarchy in the 1500s were preoccupied with other matters, including Henry VIII's break with the Roman Catholic Church.
Well, as for that, now introducing Sir Francis Drake, an English explorer and an admiral who was the first Englishman to circumnavigate the globe and who helped defeat the Spanish Armada. Sir Walter Raleigh is sent by Queen Elizabeth to claim land in the North American region in an expedition to find a good place to settle. The scouts returned with a report from Roanoke Island, off the coast of present day. However, the Roanoke colony failed.
Jacques Cartier, the French explorer in Canada, who established trade with the Native Americans and searched for the Northwest Passage, which really doesn't exist. Are we almost done? Actually, we are almost done. So bear with us. We are bored too. Let's continue with Henry Hudson, the English explorer who sailed for the Dutch and explored the river and bays in present-day New York area. Alright, Alicia, it's your turn.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now as for the list of states, I will now read off my handy-dandy paper. Florida. Well, before it was Florida, it was primarily a military outpost after the first few great expeditions.
New Mexico. Spanish settlements established by Juan de Oñate in 1898. that was the wrong date, 1598, where many Amerindians were converted and exploited. Site of mission systems and Pope's rebellions.
Now for Texas, who is now the Republican of Texas for the USA, the 28th state. But anywho, this actually angered Mexico and quickly led to the Mexican War, in which they gained the Mexican concession.
How did the Spanish settlers treat Native Americans?
Let me answer that question. Native Americans were grossly mistreated, with many of whom being enslaved and forced to convert to Christianity or murdered. They were often forced from their lands and sent to live in areas chose by American settlers.
Adding on to that, another important person would be Bartolomé de las Casas, who was an early Spanish historian and Dominican missionary who was the first to expose the expressions of Native American people by Europeans in the Americas, and to call the abolition of slavery.
Now in closing.
Going back to before the Europeans arrived and where the Native American civilization thrived, we discussed their economic, social, and political structures. We got into overseas expansions where the Columbian Exchange was introduced and the contact between Native Americans, Africans, and Europeans.
Lastly, we explained how their worldviews challenge each other's and the outcomes and the role they play in society today. Now here is the mystery document. As you know, if he gets it right, he does not have to drink my fancy concoction, but if he gets it wrong, he does, on top of biting a nasty old apple.
Okay, let's read
You
it.
have a total of 30 seconds to solve.
Sir, I do not know will be rejoiced at the glorious success that our Lord has given me in my voyage. I write this to tell you how in 33 days I sailed from the Indies with the fleet that the industrious king and queen of Souvenirs gave me, where I discovered a great many islands inhabited by numberless people. And of all I have taken possession of the highest by proclamation display of the royal standards without opposition. For the first island I discovered, I gave the name San Salvador in commemoration of His Divine Majesty, who has wonderfully granted this. The Indians called him Guanham. The second name of the island is Santa Maria de Concepcion. The third, Fernanda. The fourth, Isabella. The fifth, Juanana. And thus to discover, I gave it a new name, 2. When I gave the name to Juanata, I followed the coast of the isles towards west and found extensive that I thought it might be mainland. The province of Cathay, which is China, and as I found no towns or villages in the seacoast, except a few small settlements, where the impossible to speak to the people become because they fled at once. I continued in said route, thinking that I could not fail seems great cities or towns, and finding the end of many leagues, nothing new appeared, and the coast led northward, continuing my wish. Because the winter has already set in, I decided to make south, as the wind has also against my proceeding. I determined not to wait here any longer, and turned back to the certain harbor whence I sent 2 men to find out where there was any king or large cities. They explored for 3 days and found countless small communities, peoples without numbers, with no kind of government, and so they returned. That was really long.
We're running out of time. Alright, so who do you think it is?
I honestly think I did not know the answer, so I say Christopher Columbus.
He's actually right, guys.
Am I right?
He's right. It's a letter from Christopher Columbus in 1493. Alright, once again, thank you for joining us, and please give us a good grade. We worked really hard.